Hello, hello, hello. This is the ISL Season 6 Shield recap done by Togo. We already did a stream for this in the ISL chat, but unfortunately, I was completely technologically inept for about 20 minutes straight before we decided to just do it without recording. And then when I started to record it and just ignore the audio issues, about half an hour into the video, I must have fucked up a setting and there's just no audio being recorded anymore. So, welcome to my brief ISL draft power rankings recap for the Shield division. I'm just kind of gonna give my thoughts briefly on each of these teams, put something out so that we actually do have something for both divisions and there's not an unfair split between the two of them. Unfortunately, we won't be getting multiple people's thoughts, so if you have anything that you disagree with or that I missed, please let me know, but I'm just going to give my advice and my thoughts on each of these teams. So, we're starting with the Albany Araquanids, Del Kirby's team, and right from the get-go, looking at this, I very much like the speed control. Zero Aura is a fantastic tier 1 paired alongside Azelf with your over 100 mods, and then sticky webs as well with Araquanid, and I know that Araquanid is a Del Kirby favorite. So the sticky webs really enable Bulu, enable Bisharp, enable Glalie to some extent. Yeah. The tough thing on the other hand though is when I'm looking at these speed tiers, you have the 143, 115, 100, 97, 90. So then you have that kind of clump. Frogadier doesn't even really count in that, because let's be honest, Frogadier is probably not going to be able to accomplish much in some of these games. And then you have the clump that's just all around base 40. And so anything in between 90 and like 45 is going to be able to run whatever nature it wants, is going to be able to maximize bulk, and not really need to worry about living hits or not living hits for that matter. Or sorry, and about outspeeding stuff, because it's just going to outspeed half the team and it's going to be slower than the other half, and that's just something it's going to be able to do. I do like the Bisharp. I'm not sure how I feel about the Bulu in this tier 1 slot. I don't think that it really adds a whole lot to the team. He does have good grass resist for his opponents to be able to take advantage of it. He doesn't really rely on Earthquake, but I don't know how much advantage he himself gleans from it. It's just kind of a middling result. Like, it's a neutral effect. And Bulu I don't think is a very strong tier 1, so I would have liked to see maybe a better points distribution. You could probably even downgrade Bulu, upgrade Frogadier, and have a better, more balanced team overall. Fill in some of those middle speed tiers. Maybe get a few more defensive options, because the only Pokemon on the entire team with any sort of built-in recovery is Moltres. And so just having the option to run a little bit more of a balance-oriented playstyle, as opposed to this sort of dedicated offense or bulky offense. But none of the mons are even really that bulky for that matter. Yeah. So those would be my gripes with the team. But Zeraora is fantastic. Moltres is a great Pokemon. There's a lot that really is threatening. You have to prep for webs. You have to prep for some really potent offensive threats with Trigology, Nasty Plot Azelf, knockoff on Bisharp. The Bulu and Frogadier are two things that I would change. Maybe even the Girder as well. Just to more powerful options. Even though actually Girder in tier 5 is a good pickup for sure. On to the next team. We got the Atlanta Braviaries, piloted by Rivet. So as you can see, he's already won his week 1 game, which means he's off to a really good start. I really like Hydreigon. I think that's a fantastic initial pickup. The double bug is a little bit interesting to me, seeing Buzzwole and Beedrill there together. Especially when there is only one defogger, two defoggers, three defoggers. Wow. Hydreigon, Skarmory, and Weezing are all of the hazard removal, I believe, unless I've missed the third defogger. I know Buzzwole doesn't learn it. And none of them really like fitting that on their slots. Like, one of the advantages of Skarmory is being able to actually set the hazards. Hydreigon, it likes to be a breaker. Weezing likes to be like spreading status with Will-O-Wisp, keeping itself healthy with Pain Split. Lots of very, very physically defensive Pokemon as well, with Skarmory, with Weezing, with Buzzwole, Regirock. Those are all Pokemon with defense stats above 100. Whereas on the specially defensive side, you're gonna have Indeedee, Raikou, I guess Regirock even as your special walls. Gastrodon does a pretty good job of that as well. And I do really like the defensive pairing between Gastrodon and Skarmory. I think that that's a really nice core there. But when I'm looking at especially offensive Pokemon like Ghost types with some sort of coverage, like Gengar is going to be really difficult to deal with Sludge Bomb or D-Gleam. He has the Blacephalon. Dragapult is banned, so I guess he doesn't have to worry about that. Ice coverage is really, really, really strong against this team as well. Just like a strong Pokemon clicking Ice type attacks, the only resist on the team is Blacephalon. And otherwise everything is neutral. Oh, sorry, Bruxish as well to Ice Beam. And then the only freeze dry resist is Blacephalon because Skarmory is neutral to Ice type attacks due to its flying typing. So that's something that could actually be really threatening. Like, any strong Ice type is going to cause some issues for this team, Weavile included, even something like Vanilluxe spamming Blizzard. The speed control options are nice. You have the triple core above 145 of Raikou, Blacephalon, Beedrill, Mega. And those are all really, really threatening Pokemon in their own right, who can kind of both break and clean for themselves. Beedrill in particular. But two of those are going to be weak to Stealth Rocks, and as I mentioned before, the hazard control game is a little bit difficult for this team. So I think that that's going to be some of the problems that this team encounters as it is going through these games. Offensively, I think that there's a lot going for it. Lots of really powerful breakers. Good pivoting. No, only Buzzwole. Only Beedrill, Hydreigon, and Raikou have pivot moves. So there might be a little bit of trouble getting some of the frailer offensive threats like Blacephalon and Raikou onto the field. But otherwise, a lot of the natural bulk of like Hydreigon is going to be enabling it to get on there. Yeah, that actually is getting these offensive threats onto the field might be something that Rivet has a little bit of difficulty with as well. So if there were changes that I would want to see made, it would be probably a little bit better hazard control to enable Beedrill and Blacephalon to really take advantage of their speed and braking, and Beedrill to be able to take advantage of its ability to pivot. I know that he does have 3 defoggers, but one of them is his primary hazard setter out of his 2 hazard setters.
Visual beauty. I receive it as what they project to me, their heart.
Sorry, the talking in that song is throwing me off. Yeah, those are my thoughts. I think we've talked enough about this team. On to the next one. We got the Brooklyn Beedrills, who have the mascot being the... Let me turn down the volume of the song a little bit. It's probably a little bit too much over my voice. That should be enough, though. Okay. Melmetal is a very interesting mon when paired with Slowbro. I think that the core of Future Sight teleport into Melmetal is going to be really nice. T-Tar Mega, I think, is a fantastic Mega in that Tier 2 slot. Orbeetle, on the other hand, I am not sure what it's doing here. It's adding an unnecessary amount of weaknesses, like more rock weaknesses, more fire weaknesses, dark and ghost, that the team doesn't really need. And in terms of sticky web support, Melmetal's not going to be faster than most Pokemon under sticky webs. Noivern and Whimsicott don't really need it. I think Tyranitar and Porygon are really the only ones that would be able to take advantage of it. Maybe Toxricoke as well, and I'm really not sure how much they do take advantage of it. So I would like to see that Orbeetle slot turn into something else. The momentum on this team, though, is really fantastic. You have the U-turning from Noivern, the pivoting on Teleport from Slowbro, Whimsicott U-turn, Rotom Heat, Volt Switch. Hazard control is a little bit lacking on the setting side. Like, you have that Webs, Mega T-Tar has rocks, and Runerigus has rocks. I guess for the most part, that should be alright, but there are a lot of matchups where I think just being able to pressure spikes or have more versatility in your hazard setters tends to be really advantageous. And so just being able to get that little bit of residual chip so that something like Noivern can clean up or Melmetal can guarantee the 2-hit KO on a certain Pokemon could be really nice. So a lot of the breakers, I think, are gonna miss out on that, especially since you might want to use Tyranitar as like a DD sweeper, since it looks like that would be one of the more offensive threats that it poses on this team. Lots of really good pairings though, like Rotom Heat covers a lot of Melmetal's weaknesses really nicely. Noivern is a fantastic pairing with it. That's an interesting Fairy Dragon Steel core in Melmetal, Noivern, and Whimsicott. It's good that they kind of hold down the speed control aspect of the team, and they're both fast defoggers, so they're able to come in and at the very least trade themselves to get rid of the hazards and kind of support the team that way. I think that's always something that's really advantageous on a team. Lots of good power, good diversity in typing. I was going to say a little bit weak to fighting, but there's a lot of good fighting resist. So I think that the defensive balance of this team is really nice as well. I hope that the Slowbro and Melmetal are really able to pair together nicely and kind of carry, because it looks like the team depends on that pairing pretty heavily. But I like this team. Good job to Laser. On to the next one, and we got King Darthur and the Brisbane Blastoise. Okay. Lando T, Mega Mawile, Rotom Wash is a really, really good set of initial picks. Good ways of like the Lando T, Rotom Wash, Volt Turn core. Really nice ways to get your breakers onto the field in Conkeldurr and Mega Mawile. I do wish, like looking down here at the free picks where you have Mawile, Mega, Conkeldurr, and Golurk, those are all really threatening. But if you have an opponent who simply puts on more speed onto their team and basically make sure everything is faster than that, let's say base 60 speed tier, then those Pokemon become a lot less threatening to a lot of teams, because you're able to get the jump on them, get a hit off, and make sure that even though they're these big crazy offensive threats, you can force at least 1-for-1s for them. And in terms of cleaners on this team, you only really have Espeon, and then otherwise I guess you're relying on Scarf, Lando T, or Rotom Wash, or maybe some sort of Rock Polish Lando T set maybe? Or Rock Polish Golurk or something like that. I think that this team has a really good set of breakers but I don't think that it needs all of those breakers, and I think it needs some more cleaners to come onto the squad and really blow some things up. But this Firewater Grass Core alongside the Lando T is a really, really great pairing. And Mawile is an amazing Mega. So realistically, this 5 plus Mega Mawile plus Conkeldurr could be really good, but I think in these mons, you need to start to look for some more speed, control, a few cleaners, so that you can set up with that core that's really able to pivot, set spikes, set rocks, and force pressure onto the team. You can get something that's actually able to clear it and clean a game up. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. And I think that the team has a lot of potency, but it is going to run into a few issues on that end. On to the next. Golden State Gliscors, piloted by Python JTC. So right off the get-go, Delayed Mega I see, and I really like. One of the best Megas in draft. Really, really difficult to deal with due to its coverage, insane offensive stat of 165. So it's kind of able to pick and choose its coverage moves, threaten a Swords Dance with its really good bulk, and just break like no tomorrow. I'm seeing a lot of really good breakers on this team again, and Tyrantrum is a threatening breaker. Heatran is a stall breaker that tends to be really good. And I guess the cleaner is like a Shell Smash Blastoise, or maybe a Flame Charge Silvally. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, though. Has a few good rockers, Heatran and Landoi. It's a really nice pairing, having that really good ice resist alongside the Landoi, and then Landoi resisting fighting and ground for Heatran. Then you have the water resist coming in Blastoise and Decidueye, and I think that core altogether is actually quite nice. Those are mons that can come together and be a defensive, offensive core, both taking hits and dishing them out really well. Tyrantrum is valuable as a dragon, and it's one of the breakers that it looks like the team has, but doesn't really rely on. When you have Tyrantrum, it's gonna, I feel like, conflict with the Landoi slot. Even though it has that head smash and the banded breaker power, it has a lot of the same weaknesses, in that just like really strong ice weakness, and a lot of people are going to be bringing ice moves to hit that Landoi. But I don't think that its role is very different on a team. And Landoi, I think, is going to be coming to most games, and so it's going to be difficult to actually bring Tyrantrum to matches. I think that slot could be different and probably something that helps the team out a little bit more. I'd like to see some sort of speed control, either a reliable Scarfer, because right now the best Scarfer on the team is Heatran, and I think that it plays too important of a defensive role, or something in the 120 to 130 plus speed range would be really nice. Maybe something like a Swellow in Tier 3 if it's still available. Inteleon could be really good. I know you already have Blastoise, so it probably requires some shuffling. Good removal in Blastoise, Florges, Scyther Defog, Silvally Defog, Decidueye Defog. Really nice ways of keeping hazards off of your side, and versatile choices there. And I like that you also have the T-Spiker, because I think that would be will be really good for your team to pressure other squads. I would have more to say, but I've been taking a little bit too long with these analysis. And how many teams do I have left to go? Ooh, a whole lot. So I'm going to go into the next one. Night Owl with the Darmanitan Galar. So that is a really interesting Pokemon, and one that I have mixed feelings about. I think in Tier 1, offensive ice types are really difficult to fit onto teams because they don't offer much defensive utility, so they're not the easiest to get onto the field. And that means stuff like Weavile, even though Weavile was in Tier 2, or Kyurem. Kyurem has some really, really nice bulk, so it's a little bit different. But Darmg in particular has a hard time running boots, which are kind of the cornerstone of this generation. And so, like, it relies on Scarf and Band, and if you don't have a good way to keep rocks off of your side, then every time it comes in, it's going to be punished so heavily. And spamming U-turn like it wants to is really going to be, pardon me, difficult for it to do. So let's take a look at how the rest of the team supports this Darmanitan. The first thing that I am seeing when I look at this team is that there is a single defogger in Sigilyph. Unless Lickitung learns defog, I'm very confident that none of these other Pokemon do. So that is a really major problem. Darmanitan, like I just said, doesn't like to run boots. It really wants to make sure that rocks are off its side for you to be able to get the full benefit out of it. Arcanine can run boots, Vikavolt can run boots, and those often do. But even Venusaur and Celesteela, which are a great defensive pairing, really get punished by hazards very quickly, because Venusaur isn't able to run lefties, Celesteela has no form of reliable recovery. Leech Seed, it does give it some HP back, but it gets punished by taking as much as it would recover by Leech Seed on every switch in, if rocks are up. And if Venusaur Mega is coming up against Spikes, then you'll find that 8 Synthesis PP really quickly you burn through it, and that's one of the biggest problems that it has. So, first glance, the team does need to have more defog. Rocks on Palisand and Diancie is really nice. Good offensive speed control with Greninja, but very little speed control otherwise to speak of. Obviously, this is a really good defensive pairing. Palisand is quite a good Tier 4 with a lot of value. I think that having a ground type with recovery is really nice, and I think that Sigilyph is super underrated. But it's hard for me to talk about the cohesion of the team when just I'm thinking about how susceptible it is to being hazard stacked and worn down that way. I also think that the versatility just really isn't there with a lot of these Pokemon.
All you have to do is sort of push him out.
You know what Darmanitan is going to be bringing. It has one of 2 sets. It's either a Banded Breaker / Scarf Breaker, and otherwise it's running Belly Drum. And so if you prep for those 2 things, just get some hazards up. It's going to be difficult to deal, or not too difficult to deal with. Arcanine is reliant on boots, especially on this team. It's going to be bulky most of the time. Occasionally it can come offensive, but it's going to really be punished. Diancie is going to usually be a rocker. Sometimes I guess it can be a rock polish cleaner. Vikavolt can threaten webs to open up Darmanitan, which I really like. But since a lot of the teams so far have had some sort of webs component, I think that might fizzle out if they're both setting webs against each other, and kind of going from there. Gren is a Specs abuser. Sigilyph is either Magic Guard Life Orb, set up, Tinted Lens. Lickitung is a Wish Passer. Yeah, that's more or less the gist of it. I think I've said my part, and I'm gonna go move on. The Macomb Miniors by Christy Cakes with a badass logo. So this looks very similar to the team that Christy Cakes had last season. and I see the Rillaboom, I see the Hawlucha, I see the Zygarde 10%, but there are some new faces, or the Steelix, and then, of course, the title Pokemon, Minior. I think some of the new additions, though, are very nice. It is very much a hyper offense oriented team, but the Slowbro kind of adds that defensive core that teleports into some of these other mons. Another team with a web setter, a single rocker in Steelix is a little bit unfortunate. Because it means that that's the only way that he's going to be able to get hazards onto the field. Oh, Minior, I guess, also does have rocks. But I think that the game plan of this team is going to be pretty easy to follow most of the time. You're going to want to make sure that you have an answer to the Hawlucha Swords Dance, make sure that you have a dedicated answer to the Rillaboom, make sure that you have a dedicated answer to the Mimikyu, and then kind of try to check the rest of the team in your last 3 Pokemon. With most hyper-offensive teams in drafts, that's the way that it usually ends up working out. I think that if Christy was able to get screens, I'm not sure which mons learn it. I never know which mons learn dual screens, unless that's their primary niche in some generation. Maybe Galvantula could be a cool dual screen setter, but I think dual screens would really make this team even more difficult to deal with, honestly. I think it is going to have a lot of trouble in a lot of matchups, though. And sometimes you're going to run into opponents who can't deal with you, but sometimes you're going to run into opponents that you just can't deal with. So yeah, I think that that's more or less my thoughts on the team. Good Ice Resist to cover Zygarde. Well, Volcanion and Slowbro. Kyurem would probably be a bit of a problem, but with all the speed that you have over it, it's actually not going to be too much of an issue. Yeah, I hope that this team works out and has a good season. I'm not sure what more to say about it. Ace Harm and the Melbourne Zones are next. So right from my first glance at the team, I like just the way it looks. It's very aesthetically pleasing after all the time that I spent playing Pokemon, and it gives me a sense that it has some really good tools to it. So I think Melodic is a really fantastic balance-oriented Pokemon now that it gets Flip Turn. It doesn't really suck up momentum, and unless you run into water immunity, you're going to be able to get onto the field and kind of get off of it pretty well, threatening Scald, Burns, or Toxic, or you have the ability to remove boost with Haze or Dragon Tail or anything that may be. Latios is a really potent special breaker alongside Chandelure and Magnezone, and wow, that's a lot of really strong special breaking on one team. And then you kind of have the really strong physical mons in Mamo, Grimmsnarl, Arrow, Scolipede. So in my mind, you're kind of going to have maybe a Suicide Mammal a lot of the time, or Suicide Scolipede just forcing down hazards, trying to blow through opposing defenses with Latios and Chandelure, and then maybe cleaning up the game with a DD Arrow Mega or Speed Boost Scolipede or Magnezone. So I think that having that sort of basic game plan just kind of present throughout the team is really nice. And it's something that your opponents are going to have to prepare for. Like, how am I going to stop this cleaner? What's my plan if this comes, if I'm weak to it? What's my dedicated check to Arrow that I'm always going to keep in the back and make sure it doesn't take any chip? But I do really, really like this offensive pairing of these 3 mons, because I think that a lot of teams are going to be really hard-pressed to find consistent answers to all of them, especially since the Fairies and Steels that might be able to check Latios pretty well really don't deal with Chandelure or Magnezone. And so I think that that's a mwah, chef's kiss. Beautiful pairing. Good job. Good hazard setters. Hazard control is a little bit lacking. Hazard removal is a little bit lacking because Latios is the only defogger on the team other than Aeromega, I guess. And that might be a little bit problematic. So if you're in a situation where you just need to trade hazards and rely on your opponent to defog, that could restrict Scolipede a little bit, and I think Scolipede's best when it's able to threaten Sword Stance sweeps as opposed to wanting to just spike stack and Endeavor and be annoying that way. Screen support also really good. I think Grimsnarl's an overrated tier 2, but I think that has a good niche in this team. Good squad. On to the next one. I've said that a lot of times. I apologize if it's starting to get on your nerves. Ooh, Terrakion, Alakazam Mega, Kartana. Look at those attacking stats between those two. And then 129 might not seem that impressive, but with the dual stab that Terrakion has is really, really threatening. Terrak is one of those mons where a team either has a counter that's able to deal with it pretty nicely, or they just don't. And it's kind of able to come in, and if it makes the correct prediction on the switch, you're just going to lose something. So I think that those offensive mons are very, very nice. The speed control is also really good just with those three, and so having your offensive threats also being really fast is fantastic, because it means oftentimes you're going to be able to pressure and outspeed opposing checks to those Pokemon. One thing I've been talking about on every team so far is the hazard game, and it is a little bit disappointing to see only Terrakion and Gligar able to set only rocks, and then Leavanny able to set webs. Oh man, Leavanny and Walrein. Those are difficult Pokemon to look at. So I'm going to focus on the other ones. I think Gligar is a really underrated threat, and I think that having Pokemon like Gligar and Mandibuzz that both kind of draw in knockoffs and being able to go into Terrakion on those is really fantastic. I think that ice resists are a little bit lacking. Like, your steel type is neutral to and falls over to almost every ice beam in the game. And so relying on Walrein to come to games and be able to eat up ice type hits, I think could be a little bit problematic. So maybe some other sort of bulky water moving up into one of these tiers, like over Poltegeist, because I think Poltegeist is a really poo-poo Pokemon. Or some other sort of bulky steel type. You can never really go wrong with double steel. Bulky steel, bulky water could really fill this team out, give you some of the defensive backbone that I think it needs for a lot of this offense, because it looks like the defensive core of Mandibuzz and Gligar kind of share the same defensive role, even if they're doing defogging versus rocking respectively. They're both coming in, eating up hits, and pivoting out with U-turn into one of the threats with the same sort of weaknesses, specifically in ice. So that's Aphis' team and the Mashalton Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is goated, by the way, one of my favorite Pokemon to draft, and we're gonna move on. Here we got the Ohio State Decidueyes with my all-time favorite Pokemon, Gliscor. Pollux, good shit. What a great Pokemon. Now, let's look at the support for it. You got Primarina, Cobalion, Crobat, Latias, King Mega, Jolteon. This is a fast-ass team. 110, 130, 100, 108, 130, two 130s, 95, and then you got the Liepard in there. Just in case something was going to be faster than you, you're going to Thunder Wave it down and bring it back down under speed. So I think that if you're going to have a lot of mons within a certain speed tier, they should be faster rather than slower. And so I personally like that you have mons that are on the faster end. I think that it might leave your defensive tools a little bit lacking. So you're going to be a little pressed to kind of push the envelope in games and make sure that they're ending faster rather than taking a longer period of time. But you do have a lot of mons that are able to both take and dish out hits. Like Kabalion is a fantastic rocker that does not get enough respect. You have 60 points left over. Is that right? 180, 60, 60, 40. Yeah. You have 60 points left over because you took a tier 2 mega. So I hope that you see this video and you end up spending those points unless you're insistent on handicapping yourself. Yeah. So you have really good hazard control that you're going to be able to use to kind of push the envelope on the game. Or not really good. You have 2 good setters. Armaldo's also just kind of there as both Rapid Spin and Stealth Rock. You have really nice defoggers. And Latias and Crobat will score as well. The ice weakness is kind of covered up by Primarina and Kabalion. Freeze Dry could be a little bit tough, especially because you do have a lot of ice weak Pokemon that are going to be some of the primary ones that you bring to games. And so ice weak mons like or strong ice type attackers like Mamoswine are actually really going to pressure your team. Really good fighting resist though. You got a ton of fighting type checks to cover Kangaskhan and Kabalion. Good ground immunities, good grass resists, good fire resists, electric immunities. So a lot of things are really well covered. I think that if you spend those extra points and upgrade Liepard to something that is a little bit more fitting with the rest of the team, that you'll really be able to close this out nicely. I know that you need a dark type, but maybe you could get some other sort of dark type over Armaldo or something, or upgrade Magmortar even to a stronger dark type that fulfills a few niches. Really like some of the offensive pressure that this team puts on. I think overall it's a good squad, and it's one of the ones I like more this far. Now, G-Fry's Richmond Scissors. Skizzers. That's what it is. Slowking, fantastic Pokemon. And a Regenerator Core with Torn T and paired with Garchomp as well. Ooh, that is a intense pairing of really powerful Pokemon. You got the Lucario, which is an interesting pickup in a double steel, which is really nice with Copperaja. Lots of good hazard setters. 1, 2, Spiker, Rocker. You got Defog, no Defog. That guy. And a Mega Absol. Man, he snuck in there. Okay. I like a lot of the elements that this team has right from the get-go. A Regenerator Core is always going to be able to keep you healthy and keep you in the game to some extent. And then you have really good offenses to pair with the pivoting that Regenerator Core provides you. The webs enabling stuff like Lucario is really nice. I'm not sure about the Marowak Alola, just because it does feel a little bit out of place since you have really good boots abusers and don't really need, I don't think you want to feel the need to be defogging, since Torn T and Slowking can be resistant or immune to can be immune to rocks with the boots. Chomp is resistant. Lucario is 2 times resistant. Copperaja is resistant, and I guess you can even use Absol to kind of bounce them back. So I think some other sort of fire type could be nice in that slot instead. But I think that the composition of this team is definitely the best that I've seen so far. You have really good set of resists to cover Garchomp and its ice weakness, and I think that Garchomp provides a really nice utility for its offense and defensive utility, or defensive potential. Wow, I'm starting to space out a lot. Sorry, guys. So yeah, good job with this team. Spending tier 4 on type null I might eat my words for this, but I think that that's a little bit much, and maybe you upgrade Marowak to a really solid tier 2 fire type and lower type null to a tier 5 that is probably of equal value, even if it is a tier 5. Oh, and you have an extra 20 points remaining? Oh my goodness. Upgrade the Marowak, change type null. That would be the best. Otherwise, yeah, I really like this team. You have good hazard control, you have good speed control, you have just generally good Pokemon. Good job. Dolphin Squared's Red Spark Vikavolt with another Regenerator Core using the other Slowking and Tangrowth. Ooh. Paired with Corviknight, Megalopony, Aromatisse, Piloswine, Heliolisk, and then a Rain Core. This is a very interesting team, and one that just glancing at, I do like. Except, and you're gonna get tired of hearing me say this, I'm sure you already are, if you've watched this entire video. Thank you for watching this. It feels like I've put a lot of time into this, even though it's only been 40 minutes. 1 rocker, 2 rocker, and Cursula kind of sucks. I hate that Pokemon. And that's it. So you're reliant entirely on actually hitting the opponent to be able to get damage down onto them. And I feel like a lot of the time, Piloswine is not a mon that you want to be guaranteeing that you're bringing when you have your Regenerator Core, you have Corviknight, you have the Rain Core that you want to be able to bring, and then Megalopony is so good you almost never want to leave it at home. So I do have a little bit of a problem with Piloswine being the only good rocker, and then Cursula just kind of being there. Otherwise, I think that it's good that you have Corviknight to pivot, but it's a little bit difficult to get Kingdra onto the field sometimes, since it doesn't really want to be taking hits that would be directed at Politoed. So I think that you're going to have to do a little bit of dancing around with your Regenerator mods. Shouldn't be too difficult, but that is something that might end up biting you in the butt a little bit. I wonder if there's any sort of shuffle that you could do, like maybe Politoed could come down to this maybe Heliolisk could go up here to the Politoed free slot. You could change the Politoed into a Pelipper, since they're both already electric weak. Though your ice weakness would really be exacerbated if you did that. Yeah. I think that the offensive potential of this team is really nice. I think that the defensive potential really heavily relies on the Regenerator Core. But I still think that it's a very potent team, and one of the better ones that we've seen so far, just because of kind of the core that comes along with it. If you can really reduce your ice weakness a little bit and have a good consistent resist that is not Piloswine or Flareon in the rain, I guess Politoed does resist ice, even though I'm thinking freeze dry and saying ice. I've been saying that so much this video. If you're here at this point, thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. On to the next one. St. John's, Sharpedos, and Cran. Okay, we have Aegislash, fantastic core, superior, good tier 3 Pokemon, really good tier 3. Mew, super versatile. So looking at Mew, Aegislash, kind of that top tier core, I very much like it. There's a lot of versatility between what those Pokemon can do, a lot of pressure that they can put on from the Vilder. Like, what set is Mew gonna run? I don't know. What set is Aegislash gonna run? Is it gonna be physical, special, some sort of toxic protect set? How is Sylveon gonna be able to support this team? Well, it'll be able to Wish. It can threaten Calm Mind. Sometimes it can be a Specs Breaker and just being able to fire off those fairy type Piper voices. Really, really nice. Sharpedo I actually think is quite underrated as a cleaner, and so I respect that Cran here is drafting his mascot Pokemon. You have really good pivoting with Mienshao, even though it looks like that's the only pivoting other than Baton Pass on Sylveon. Volt Switch is on Lantern, and does Oricorio learn U-turn? Yes. Yes. Probably. We're gonna go with probably. So reliable pivoting, because Sharpedo doesn't really want to be giving up its speed boosts, is going to be Mienshao and Lantern as your Volturn core. Not ideal, considering that the recovery is reliant on Sylveon Wish passing into other Pokemon, but I think that it's something that you'll be able to work around. And I think Aegislash is one of those Pokemon, along with Rhyperior, that's kind of able to find ways to get onto the field and use its bulk to be able to fire off its offensive attacks. So hopefully that will mean that you don't have too difficult of a time taking advantage of that. Now we come to the part of these team discussions where I again talk about hazard removal, hazard setting, generally hazard control. I see a rocker. I see a rocker / spiker. There's nothing else. And then I'm looking at the defoggers, and I see a defogger, and I see a defogger. I see nothing else. And so it looks like Mew is really heavily dependent on for hazard control if you're going to bring hazards at all. So I think that is one of the things that makes Mew less valuable on a team draft, where you take away kind of the diversity of sets that it can run because hazards are so good that you want to be able to bring them, and that means that your Mew is going to be spiking or stealth rocking or something like that in one of its slots every week, when that could be a straight Poltergeist, Will-O-Wisp, knockoff, Super Fang, like whatever it may be, because it can do everything. Or on the other hand, you can bring that set and then you miss out on hazards, and it means that you're not punishing your opponent for doing one of the most important things in Pokemon, which is just switching. So that I think is a little bit of a difficulty. But when it comes to just the value of each individual Pokemon, I see a lot of Pokemon that I think are very, very good and have really consistent niches and roles. And I think that you're going to be able to find a lot of success using a lot of these mods. The speed control might be a little bit lacking, having your fastest mon at 113, but at least there is something that's above 110, and then you have a few mons at that 105 stat, both of which who threaten being at +1. So Mienshao threatens a Scarf, Sharpedo threatens a speed boost, and so I think that part is really, really nice. You do have the speed just completely jump from 65, 60, 60, 67 up to Oricorio's 93. So if Oricorio isn't coming too much, then it jumps all the way up to 100, which is a really big gap. And I think that might cause a few problems in terms of your opponent not really needing to put in any speed on some of their mid-speed Pokemon and still be faster than a good chunk of your team. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. I think sometimes it's a little bit difficult to fit that, and it's some of the same things that I've criticized a lot of these teams for. I do think that it is quite a good team, with the exception of those few issues. The St. Louis Moltres. Okay, before we get into the team, I'm going to talk about something that I found out, I don't know when, but it was fairly recently, and it's completely mind-blowing. Did you know that the legendary birds have their names based off of numbers? Arctic Uno, Zapdos, and Moltres. I've been playing Pokemon for almost 15 years at this point, and I didn't learn that up until sometime this year. And I was very disappointed in myself. And if you didn't know that either, then I hope that you're not disappointed in yourself, but feel comforted that we both made the same mistake. And now you know. So on to the team. Okay. Raichu Alola, Sceptile. Where's the electric terrain setter? Those two Pokemon look like they'd go on a team because you have like a Tapu Koko or a Pincurchin even, because you have the Unburden and you have the Surge Surf or Speed Control. Am I not seeing it? No, I'm definitely seeing everything that should be there. Okay. So I really like Kyurem. As we've said on almost every team in this video, that they're very ice/freeze-dry weak. I think Kyurem is going to be able to come and just find a way onto the field with the multitude of pivoting that you have so far. And click Specs Freeze-Dry. And that is going to be really difficult for a lot of teams to deal with. So that is a big plus to have in this division so far. Nihilego is a really underrated Pokemon as well. Now that it's gotten the Meteor Beam set, and it's able to boost its special attack and its speed all at once if it gets a KO and it EVs itself correctly, I think that it's become even more threatening despite losing Hidden Power Fire. Because paired with Kyurem, you're going to have this pressure on the opposing Steel types to come in and try to take those Ice type hits, but then all of a sudden they're going to be weakened enough that the best answer to Nihilego is no longer healthy enough to be able to withstand a Meteor Beam or a +1 Thunderbolt, let's say. So that's a really, really big advantage of this team. Pair that with Wish support as well as Flip Turn, getting in the Kyurem is really nice. And then Scizor Mega is just a super, super fantastic Mega now that Hidden Power Fire doesn't exist anymore and it only has to look out for fire coverage on Pokemon that it knows learn fire moves. That's really good. Pairing it with Vaporeon is so fantastic because they're able to kind of just pivot defensively and slow pivot, taking a hit and then going into the next Pokemon really, really well to threaten it out with the Kyurem or something like that. The speed control aspects are better on this team than they were on a lot of the others, but at the same time, the fast Pokemon are some of the least threatening on the team. Like, the Comfy's Triage is super good as an ability, but at the same time you have to remember that it's going off of an 82 special attack stat, only 50/75 base power moves, which is not that threatening for a lot of teams. And then these Pokemon, while being very fast, you only have 105 special attack and not the best special coverage. I think it's just Grass, Dragon, and Focus Blast. And then Raichu has 110 speed, but it doesn't have that much special attack to back it up, even if it does have Thunderbolt and Surf and Focus Blast itself as coverage. So, good Pokemon, but I think that their negative attributes, or sorry, just their low attack stats make that speed a little bit less valuable. Good hazard setting though. Really good hazard removal. Rapid spin, defog. Yes, Blaziken is a bird. You got T-spikes on Cofagrigus, T-spikes on Nihilego. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. I don't know where the Tapu Koko is though. Where's the Tapu Koko for these two Pokemon? Did we see a Tapu Koko already? Is Tapu Koko taken? Tapu Koko is taken. Okay, I'm thinking that we'll run into that in one of these. Tapu Fini, we're going to do a quick peek ahead. There's the Tapu Koko. Okay, let's see this next team. Tapu Fini, really good water type. Fairy typing is fantastic. Paired with Medicham Mega and Cinderace. Whew. Those are some threatening high tiers. Very powerful Tapu Fini with its most recent addition of Draining Kiss. Ends up being a really threatening sweeper in a lot of situations. And then you have some really consistent pivoting with U-turn, 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 U-turn to be able to get in this Medicham Mega, which is also super threatening. I like the pairing of Cinderace with strong electric type, because some of the best answers to Cinderace are waters, and so you pivot out into the Thundurus, and all of a sudden your opponent is staring down the highest special attack stat on an electric type in the game. Nope, Xurkitree exists. God damn it, Thundurus. So underwhelming. I'm just joking. So that sort of offensive pairing is very nice. This offensive pressure is really good selling point of this team. Even not having some of the highest attacking stats, just by the nature of the Pokemon, like 120 base power, no drawback unless it misses. Move, stab move, threatening knockoff with a high attack stat, Thunderbolt, threatening sweeps with a calm mindset. I think that this team is really cool, and the 5-0 win that they got in their first week, I'm sure speaks to that. Double normal defensively is a little bit difficult. In an 11-mon draft, I think that having one normal is really, like, it doesn't take anything away from your team. It adds a ghost immunity, and that's really nice. But when you have two normal types, you now have two Pokemon who don't really add any defensive utility in terms of resistances. Like, I know Licky Licky is quite bulky, it only has one weakness, but Licky Licky is also taken advantage of pretty easily by a lot of Pokemon. And I think that when you have a normal type wish passing into your steel type that has no recovery as your only wish passer, they're both threatened by that same fighting type stab, and Weezing can come in and take that, but I guess you can wish pass into Fini as well. Thundy T even. Maybe I'm not giving it enough credit. Hazard setters, just Registeel, T-spikes on Weezing, Rocks on Crocodile. Pretty decent. I think 3 setters has been the average throughout this thing so far, or even a little bit above average. Good removal with Fini. Weezing unfortunately doesn't get it. Rapid spin, court change on Cinderace if you can fit it. Rapid spin on Mr. Rhyme, who I never know if I should respect it or ignore it, because I feel like it has the potential to be good, but never really performs as well as I was expecting it to when I see it. Yeah. That is my analysis of this team. Not the most in-depth, but a little bit to say and tier. Cap. So I saw this team during the draft stream, and it was one of the last teams that we ended up talking about and discussing. And I think that it is the best team in the division, just based off of what I've seen. So, off of the attributes that I've instantly gone to on every other team. Hazard setters. What does it have? You have Swampert with rocks, Klefki with spikes, Drudigan with rocks. Really good way to get off right from the get-go, because these are all mons that are really easy to fit in, can get up those hazards, and they threaten paralysis, they threaten damage. Swampert can pivot out into something else with its newly gained flip turn, and the pivoting on this team is absolutely fantastic. You have U-turn on Coco, U-turn on Zarude, flip turn on Swampert, flip turn on Blastoise, U-turn on Victini, U-turn on Yanmega, U-turn on Passimian. You're not going to be able to get these Pokemon to stay in. So at any time that they want to, and if they pressure a switch in and you bring in one of your counters, they're going to be going out into the next crazy threat. Like Victini is a great breaker, Gengar is a great breaker, Zarude is a great breaker, Blastoise and Drudigan are both really offensively threatening as well, and so is Passimian with stab close combat. So I think that just that sort of pivot offense combination makes this team really nice. Set with along with the hazard control of rapid spin alongside the spikes and stealth rocks, means that they're going to be able to keep hazards off of their side and on yours and get that additional damage while they're pivoting. The Yanmega, I think, is a little bit off, mostly because I'm not seeing the best rock resist. I guess Klefki and Swampert are both quite good. It just feels a little bit out of place. Like, looking at it, I don't think that it adds a whole lot, since I think that most of the other Pokemon are going to be coming as your offensive core, and I'd like to see a little bit more of a defensive Pokemon in that slot. I think it's just a bit redundant with everything else that's here. And that's more or less what I want to say. I've talked for about an hour. Wow, it's a lot of talking. I hope that you enjoyed. I know I talked about hazards and ice types and removal and speed tiers. Oh, I didn't mention the speed tiers for that team. Speed tiers, very good. Look at this. 130, 110, 100, 105, 60, 75, 86, 95. Am I just saying numbers? Absolutely. That's the ISL Shield power ranking / just general discussion of the team structure and members recap. Hope that you enjoyed. If you didn't, please let me know what you would have liked to see more and or less of, and hopefully the next ones will be a little bit better. Wow, that's it. See ya.